Hey, what's up? Welcome to Adobe's Learn from the Pro series. My name is Kris Truini and I'm a filmmaker that runs a production company and YouTube channel called Kriscoart, where I share some of my filmmaking projects, some of the breakdowns, and some of the things that I'm learning. And I want to bring some of those ideas and some of those techniques onto this series when it comes to editing in Premiere Pro. So in this second video, we're actually talking about one of my favorite things, which is sound design. Sound design is a great way to glue things together to elevate and highlight certain moments in your edit and really enrich the overall level of immersion in your edit, and can create a sense of atmosphere, can create a sense of space, and all the things, all the elements that help support a cinematic piece. So what exactly is sound design? Well, the very raw way of seeing it is essentially adding a bed of sound that accompanies the visuals that you're seeing, but it goes a little bit more than just that. And I'm gonna try to be brief on the theory side so we can jump into the tutorial side, but mainly it is driven also by emotion. So maybe not exactly what's the most realistic thing or what's on screen, but it could also be a more subconscious element to it, or it could be a sound or a series of sound driven more by perspective of character or who the story is being told from or told to. So there's all these different combinations of things that definitely affect the way that you craft your sound design. But with all that in mind, and I highly encourage you guys to check out some videos on my channel if you want to dig deeper into this especially. But for now, let's jump in and let's see a few ways to create an effective sound design as well as some tricks. So the first thing that we're going to cover is when you're introducing sounds into your scene. Sometimes whether you're pulling from an element that you've recorded yourself or from a sound library, they're going to be sometimes a great starting point and a great idea, but there is a certain level of treatment that you need to do to certain sounds when you are incorporating them into a sequence or literally a space that could acoustically be very different depending on where the story is taking place. And again, also that subjective nature of how we are interpreting those sounds as an audience. So there's some effects that really help out a lot in terms of making the sounds fit in the space as well as making them fit with the story. So one of my first effects that I like to use all the time is the treble effect. This is one of the easiest effects, that's why I'm putting it right at the top. And you literally drag this in and you can very easily knock out some of the high ends of some of the sound, which is really nice if perhaps you have a song that has some hi-hats or something that's a little bit distracting as a background track, and you have some speech, you have dialogue happening over it, and you don't want the dialogue to have to fight for space in the high end with some more distracting elements that could be some percussion or whatever the case may be. And this is something that I run into all the time with my tutorials. So what I do is I just knock off the high end just a little bit by simply adding a treble effect, going a little bit in the negatives with this value and going into something like -2 or 3 if you want to just get something subtle. Or of course you can use this as a full-on effect and create maybe some dips where everything gets muffled, and you can go really extreme and even keyframe this value by clicking on the stopwatch here and making changes over time, and you can really create some interesting effects or even some interesting modulation to certain sounds depending on what is taking place on screen. And on top of all of that, you can actually label preferences for added customization. Now another effect that I love to use all the time, which is it kind of follows on the same idea but it gets a little bit more, it's like taking a step further, and that is EQing your sound. So we can use the parametric equalizer, or EQ, and once you drag that in, you can see that we can have access to a full range, a full spectrum of frequencies that our sound is made up of, and we can adjust this curve to take certain frequencies out, to maybe take out some of the bass, some of the lower end, or maybe if it's, maybe we want to clean up the audio a little bit, or maybe add some crispiness to the mids or to the high ends. And then finally, the biggest, probably and most obvious way to change a sound when it comes to fitting it in a certain space is the reverb. So you can add some artificial reverb into whatever sound, and to add it, I'm just going to look up reverb under the effects panel, and I'm going to drag and drop studio reverb onto my sound. And we can customize it from scratch from the default settings, or you can even pick from some of their presets, and those can be some great starting points. So you can pick a preset and then maybe increase the wetness to just add essentially more reverb. You can maybe decrease the diffusion so it kind of scatters into the space rather than just bouncing off of what would be surfaces. You know, there's a lot of different ways that you can play with these effects and really change or adapt the way that certain sounds sound. As you're layering sounds and you're going through this process, stay organized, especially when it comes to drag and dropping a ton of sounds. Maybe, you know, stick to certain audio tracks that are just for the ambience, certain audio tracks that are just for the Foley, and so on with music and other elements. And to take it a step further, also color code your sounds. So my favorite thing to do is to separate the music in a different color, and then you can play with the other categories that I mentioned in their own color as well, which makes it visually also easier to group select them and also go into the essential sound panel to add some adjustments to that overall group so that right away you know what to grab, what to select based on the color. There's so much to cover when it comes to sound design, and it's one of those things that it's so much fun. So I hope you did enjoy this, and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a like, share it with a friend, and subscribe to Adobe's channel, since there's a ton of more great content coming up, including some more videos that we're doing together. And in the next one, we're talking about captions and subtitles, which might not sound exciting, but trust me, you don't want to miss it because it is super important, and there's a few techniques inside of Premiere Pro that make it very powerful. So with that being said, subscribe. I think I said that already, but you know, if you haven't, here's another reminder for you to do that, and I will see you in that next video.